All right. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Our Life, Beginnings and Always, Baxter's Route. Last episode, we were preparing for Miranda's 19th birthday party. We went shopping, we bought a bunch of things. We have one more thing left to do until the day of the party itself, and that is baking cupcakes. Baxter told us that he would give us his kitchen in order to make the cupcakes, and that is what we are going to start this episode with. So, let's get into it. They kissed you, your parents, by the way, one on either cheek, and shooed you enthusiastically out of the door. You hurried across the street, lugging your cargo in 2 large grocery store branded totes. Once up the front steps to Baxter's house, you gingerly rearranged things so you were able to grab the doorknob. As promised, Baxter had left it unlocked. A panel of light spread over your feet. Steeling yourself in preparation for the last stretch of an interminable day, you gripped the bag handles tighter and stepped inside. Stepping briskly through the entry, you recalled that Baxter's condo had a kitchen directly opposite the main living room, okay? You made your way straight there. Yes, this is still the living room. Okay, I guess we don't get a graphic of the kitchen. I was kind of wondering what the kitchen would look like, but... Dolphin painting over the couch, anyone? Baxter was waiting for you beside the fridge and swiveled around when he heard you enter. Ah, you're here. Excellent. Welcome, welcome.
So?
Were you able to find everything we need from your house? Many places might be closed this late, but I'm not opposed to a trip to the grocery store if necessary. You unceremoniously hauled the 2 large bags of stuff up onto the kitchen counter, though being careful not to squash the eggs, and wiped your brow in an exaggerated fashion. We're good. I managed to lug everything over here. You both made a start on unpacking the bags of ingredients, but before you could get very far, there was a sudden exclamation from Baxter. In your hands were 2 boxes of cake mixture.
Hallelujah.
I was hoping you'd bring something similar. Being that genuinely glad, you couldn't help but let your eyes widen in surprise. Do you mean to tell me that Baxter Ward is somehow not a master baker in disguise? I thought you could do everything. Baxter sheepishly raked a hand through his iconically colored hair. Practically speaking, I actually haven't the faintest idea what kind of baking I'm capable of, though the probability suggests that it's unlikely to be much. To tell you the truth, I have never baked before in my entire life, whether using a pre-prepared mix or not. I only imagine that this way would be easier. Potentially. I guess I'm pretty good at it myself? I don't know. I'm in between that or it's not that hard. Listen, my dude, my man, my bro. I've made my own blueberry scones from scratch. I've made a few different things from scratch. It's not that difficult. I think the most annoying thing is just like, especially for scones, you have to knead them on the counter, so you have to like flour your counter and and that gets a little bit messy, but otherwise like it's not hard. Maybe just it's not that hard, no need to worry. Oh, I'm not the best at decorating, to be honest. Baxter's mouth lifted in an impish little smirk.
My pleasure.
In that case, we can lean on each other. 2 heads are better than 1 and all that. At least that's the theory. We must soldier on either way. Speaking of which, let's get baking, shall we? You finished unpacking the remaining ingredients, lining them all up carefully on the countertop. Baxter took the second bag and did the same. That reminds me, I might have been a bit hyperbolic when talking about how barren my fridge is earlier. It's not as if the thing is completely empty. Okay, yeah. How many boxes of takeout do you have in that fridge? And is there anything else? Because I doubt it. Maybe like a drink. One. But otherwise. At the time, I wanted to assure you that it wouldn't be any trouble for you to come and make use of it. And there is definitely plenty of room.
Of course.
But I'm not completely incapable of providing a basic level of hospitality. If you're ever hungry or thirsty, let me know. This news came as a relief to you. Probably not for the reason that Baxter was expecting. Sure, it was great you wouldn't starve while you were here. But mostly, you were glad to hear that Baxter wasn't living on his own with nothing to eat in the house. That mental image had been so lonely. You thanked Baxter for the offer, although you weren't in the mood for anything at present. At some point in the conversation, Baxter had rummaged around in a cupboard and added a third muffin tray to the two of yours. The kitchen happened to be supplied with one of these already, but thank you for bringing the spares in case of emergency. As often happened in your life, you found yourself offering a prayer of thanks to your mom for reminding you of the blindingly obvious. Oh, right, about that. We'll never get done if we only bake one tray at a time. If we use all the trays, the batch will be done faster. Your oven should be big enough. Baxter's eyebrows lifted a fraction in surprise. That's true. There should be enough space. The pans aren't terribly large. I'll double check. Plus there are like tiers? You know, there are different like shelves kind of in an oven. Supposedly? Hopefully? What kind of oven do you have? He picked up one of the trays, walked over to the oven, and opened it up. He put it inside, took it back out, and then tried putting it in again. Long ways. Then he nodded, apparently satisfied. Yes, that will do it, especially if we use more than one shelf. 3 dozen cupcakes at once? We could almost start a bakery. He was more than a little tickled by the idea, so you refrained from pointing out that he'd first have to know a little bit more about baking to actually run one.
All right.
Another matter squared away. Where shall we begin? Without saying another word, you tore into the cake mix. Same thought, good. We'll start with the batter, which is the mix plus water, oil, and eggs. Normally you'd use milk, but the mix we're using has powdered milk in it to begin with, so water is good. I see. We also need to set the oven to preheat to 350 Fahrenheit. Listen, little thing about my life when I'm doing any sort of baking, let's say in this instance, I'm making a cake, right? So I mix up the batter or whatever, and then I heat the oven rather than starting to preheat while I'm making it, because I'm nervous that I'm not going to finish making the batter before the oven is done preheating, and it will be sitting there waiting for me and just like silently burning, and I don't know. There's something about that. I'm afraid that I'm going to burn my house down in the 30 seconds more it's going to take me to make cake mix. So I'd rather wait afterwards and waste my own time than have the oven waiting on me. Anyway. Excellent. That's relatively straightforward. The pair of you promptly made a start. Measuring out the ingredients into a mixing bowl didn't present any real challenge. Baxter insisted on cracking the eggs. Okay. Even I know how to do that much. With everything together in one bowl, you started to stir it together using a wooden spoon. While you were mixing the batter, Baxter diligently placed 36 miniature paper cupcake liners into the tins. Once he was finished, he came and peered over your shoulder into the bowl. Is it ready? You gave a firm nod. You had the batter at a good, even consistency, moderately thick while still being runny enough to pour.
What do you think?
How were we meant to get it into the trays? A spoon, perhaps? A serving spoon would do fine, though a rubber spatula would come in handy for getting the last bits of batter out of the bowl. You picked them both out of the utensil drawer. Portioning out the batter into the cupcake tins was where things started to get more involved. You took care of filling the 2 tins you'd brought from home, while Baxter made the effort on his own tin by himself, okay? You managed to get the batter sitting evenly in all the cases without spilling. Baxter's pan didn't fare so well, however. I felt that coming. His batter, or Baxter, proportions were uneven, and some of the mixture had dribbled off of the spoon and onto the tray, which had to be wiped down. He mumbled a quiet apology, clearly embarrassed, but you squashed it with an encouraging grin. He'd performed his duty, and you were grateful for the help. Baxter cautiously lifted the trays one at a time into the hot oven, placing 2 on the top shelf and sliding the last one in underneath. Then he checked the instructions again and set a timer on his phone. There was enough cake batter left to fill another 2 trays, at a rough estimate, but the 3 in the oven were all you had, so you covered the bowl with shrink wrap and put it in the fridge. Okay. It's not going to take that long to bake. There are liners in the thing, so you don't have to wash it out. Take them out. Put the cupcakes somewhere else. Fill it up again and slam it back in. There's no fridge involved here. By this point, it was nearly 11 o'clock, but Baxter had remained perky and chipper as the night wore on. It didn't come as a surprise by this point, since you knew full well that he was a proven night owl. While the cakes were in the oven, you had to take care of the frosting next. You could remember a recipe without any trouble. Ma was right. It was one of the easier parts of making a cake, all told. You recited the necessary ingredients out loud. As you went down the list, Baxter foraged around on the countertop and handed the named items to you, which you added to a fresh mixing bowl. Then he dove under the counter for a moment and popped back up, sporting a handheld electric whisk. You inserted the 2 metal beaters into the mixture and switched to a low setting. Then you turned the whisk on. Once the mixture was settled, you gradually upped the speed. Okay, I'm not going to comment on it. Once again, Baxter was rather awestruck by the ease with which you handled the process. He'd been giving the electric whisk a nervous side-eye ever since it was brought out. If I'd been given charge of that device, a dusting of sugar would have been the least of our concerns. We might have spent the entire night scraping cream cheese off of the walls. You chuckled and continued to smooth out the spread. While you doted on the bowl, Baxter peered over you with interest, leaning close in order to get a better look. Behold, frosting. It was a touch closer than might be considered strictly polite, and there was something about the proximity of his body that made it harder than usual to concentrate on the task at hand. Ooh. You certainly didn't mind, per se, but still. You were operating dangerous equipment here. It's a whisk. It's not dangerous. You could easily pick out the smell of his aftershave. You swallowed. Okay. At some point, he concluded that he was crowding you overmuch, so he took a small few steps to a safer distance. He sort of lounged against the far counter, trying to make it appear as though he'd always intended to do so. Baxter worked quite hard behind the scenes to give off the impression that everything he did was totally effortless. Maybe it came from being a dancer. You pondered these things during the tedious mixing process. It was so cute. Of course, you already knew Baxter was pretty adorable. Okay. Don't put words in my mouth. It wasn't too long before you had the frosting looking halfway decent and turned the whisk off. Baxter took that as his cue to come back over, smiling pleasantly.
Thanks.
For taking care of that, Kit. Ew, I eat frosting for breakfast. Excuse me? I mean, the whole thing was a team effort. The frosting, maybe not so much. You stood there and looked pretty. But I'm gonna say it anyway because it's the nice thing to say. You're too kind. I suppose we can say I provided emotional support then. Yes, I like that. Pat pat, good job. I'd originally planned to put the frosting in the fridge while we wait for the cakes to finish, but that might make it too difficult to spread later on. What do you think? You'd been about to say the same thing, so you merely nodded in approval. It was nice to see that he was beginning to figure things out. We just love putting things in the fridge, oh my goodness. At this point, you were inclined to relax a bit. Even with the frosting taken care of and the comforting smell of baking in the air, Baxter was in the mood to keep himself busy. In fact, your success with the cakes, however relative that success might be, had put him in an industrious frame of mind, okay? You watched as he cheerfully donned a pair of rubber gloves, black, of course, and began to fill the sink with water in order to wash the bowls and other baking equipment. Good. I hate that part. While the faucet was running, he also took down some cloths and surface cleaner, with the intent of wiping down the countertops wherever there were traces of cake mix powder and batter. That's my least favorite part, and I know that technically speaking, it's nice to help out. I kind of want to leave him to it, you know? I hate dishes. If there's one chore I don't want to do, it's dishes. Heck, let's leave him to it. I know that's so mean, but... He hummed quietly under his breath, a wordless, formless serenade. The way he moved along with the lilt of a melody made him seem to be drifting in a world of his own. So long as you're enjoying yourself, my dude. Suddenly, there was a bright, tinkling sound. It jolted you out of whatever thought you'd been having. Baxter's hand went to his back pocket. The timer on his phone had rung out.
Exciting!
The cakes are done! He was genuinely excited by the prospect, hastily jabbing at his screen to turn off the alarm, then grabbing a nearby pair of oven mitts with pictures of cats on it. Okay. They must have belonged to the owner of the condo. Absolutely not. They're Baxter's, rather than Baxter himself, since the fabric was a deep red color. The cats were all black and white, though. You suppose that counted. Carefully, cautiously, he eased the 3 baking pans out of the oven, placing them one by one onto the granite counter, alright? He even recalled which had gone in first, second, and third, and removed them in the proper order. They went in within like seconds of each other. It doesn't really matter. The cakes looked good. They'd risen uniformly, and the color was a nice, rich chocolate brown. They hadn't dried out either. You could see a faint, moist sheen on the surface. You chimed up as you admired your handiwork. Do you have anything to go underneath the pans? To protect the counter, I mean, it's granite. Doesn't matter. You know how many times I put hot pans and just generally hot things on the counter by itself? It's fine. I'm not sure. I mean, because my countertops are quartz, because granite's a little bit like difficult to take care of. I guess I could understand. It just takes more work. Maybe it gets burnt, but it's a rock. Oh, that's a good point. I don't think there's anything here, though. It should be fine. Hopefully. The stone is real, not a veneer over less sturdy material. Hold on, I need to look up whether or not you can put hot things on granite. Okay, I looked it up, and I will reiterate my point. It is a rock. It's not going to burn. But I did read somebody say online that quartz is better than granite for putting hot things on. Like the granite, you will not burn your granite by putting a hot pan on it for a little bit. But quartz is a little bit better. Go team. Okay. Baxter stared down at the cakes, his face thoughtful. Then he removed the oven gloves, folded them on the tabletop, and pinched the bridge of his nose, eyes closed.
So...
I dread to ask, but how many of these were we supposed to make? I've only now realized I never asked Terry how much food she needs. Oh. You hadn't thought of that. Well, it had been decided you bring cupcakes. Terry had never actually said anything about quantity. She simply wanted another dessert besides her cake. He explained as much to Baxter. He breathed in through his nose, then sighed deeply and opened his eyes. I love when he's done with our shit. Just tired of us. Perhaps that's because Terry doesn't know herself. It's understandable. This whole party is extempore. Don't know that word to begin with. I do hope 36 is enough. Even with the spare batter, we don't have time to prepare another batch. It only takes 10-20 minutes. Not if they're to cool and be frosted before the event. I must extend my thanks once again that you brought your family's spare tins over. Otherwise, the crowd would be fighting over a paltry 12 cupcakes. You're welcome. We got lucky. Speaking of your family, you checked the clock on your phone to see how long ago you bade them farewell. Wow. It'd already gone past midnight. You couldn't believe it gotten so late, and you couldn't even start the frosting until the cakes had cooled, which might take another hour or more. Freezer. You put the phone down, glancing in Baxter's direction. You were acutely aware he was doing you a favor, more than one for that matter, and you didn't want to further impose if it'd be an issue. You decided to put the question to him directly, as much as you were able. What would be worse, staying up even later to finish everything tonight, or getting up bright and early tomorrow morning? I feel like I know the answer. Baxter scrunched up his face, his boyish nose wrinkling in distaste. Waking early, no question. Of course, you knew he'd say that before you even asked, but you wanted to give him the choice. Valid. It's fine, don't worry. I will stay awake as long as needed to see this endeavor through. I understood what I was signing up for when I offered to help. More or less. Though I honestly don't mind if you head home and get some rest. I can idle around until the cakes have set, and then, well, you know, the rest. Until today, I've never baked before, and by extension, I am 99% certain I've never frosted a cake before either. But I can manage. He cleared his throat, crossing his arms with finality. The point is, I don't intend to quit until the end. The bitter but hopefully not bitter in taste end. I do I guess somebody needs to make sure you don't make a mess of things. But also, no, I'm not making you do that.
I appreciate the understanding.
All by yourself. Both your continued company and your help. We'll get through this with, what was it? The awesome and terrible power of teamwork? Yeah. Bow down. Of course. All hail. The commitment made, you decided to put the cakes in the freezer. Oh my god, we're smart? For a short while to help speed the cooling process along. The 3 tins fit snugly inside. Nothing left to do but wait. It does kind of suck that you're putting the tins in the freezer also when you could take them out. They're cupcakes, you know? Reuse the tins, more cupcakes, but I'll let you have it. This was actually pretty fun. I don't know, I feel very neutral about a lot of these. Oh, there's no need to sound quite so surprised about it, but I agree. It's been a delightful experience on the whole. Baxter pressed firmly against the freezer door, making positively sure that it had shut. He then tapped at his phone, setting another timer, before glancing in your direction.
Well,
Since we need to wait a while longer, why don't we take this opportunity to rest? You're welcome to use either the couch or a chair in the living room. He ran a finger around his collar before putting a hand to his forehead, pantomiming fatigue. I must say, trying to keep up with you is taking its toll on my stamina. I'm starting to feel the effects. Chair? I do wonder the way that this game is going to take these options. But I'm gonna say chair. Of course, please, go right ahead. Oh, before you go. He held up a hand, gesturing vaguely about. I'd almost forgotten where we were. I'll join you shortly, but can I bring you anything refreshing to drink? I was about to get myself a little something. Water.
Certainly.
I'll bring a glass along. You made your way into the sitting area, making a beeline for one of the comfier looking chairs. You sagged down into it, feeling the cushion mold itself to your shape. The house is built on an open plan to the extent that you could still see Baxter over in the kitchen from where you were waiting. He opened one of the cabinets and took out something that looked suspiciously like one of the plastic champagne flutes that you and Terry had bought earlier today. Except that one was real glass. Ooh, fancy. From the fridge, he fetched a large green bottle from a side shelf, which you hadn't spotted before. He needed to screw a cork off the top. Out of it poured a fizzy liquid, pale gold in color. In front of our newborn cupcakes? I didn't read the rest of them. I really like that one. I just want to say that one because I really like in front of our newborn cupcakes.
Yes.
Damn, okay. The reply came immediately, without so much as a glance in your direction. He had no compunction about what he was doing. In front of our cupcakes? I don't care. Having poured his drink, Baxter set about procuring your water. He pointedly used a plain mug rather than a second champagne glass. Then he took both drinks in hand. He carefully navigated his way out of the kitchen, claiming his place on the generously sized sofa. He took the drink he held out. Then he clinked your glasses together and raised the one he had to his mouth. Let's keep this between us, all right? His lips curled mischievously. But look at me drinking on the job. What a shameful way to start my new party planning occupation. Pro bono, naturally. Cheers, Kit. He took a long, slow sip of his champagne, closing his eyes and savoring the taste. He smacked his lips and let out a low ah of enjoyment. I just like imagining the actual ah instead of a more breathier the way you normally do it. That hits the spot. Much better than that thing they called a baby Bellini. Though you wouldn't have admitted it, the laid-back manner with which he handled such an illicit topic was rather beguiling. Really? If you had a bit of a soft spot for the bad boys, it's okay. Your thoughts snagged on something Baxter had said a moment ago. His joke about drinking while on the clock. In a certain sense, you reasoned, it wasn't so much of a joke after all. Baxter had readily committed to helping you and Terry organize Miranda's party at extremely short notice. He dedicated himself to the endeavor not just today, but tomorrow as well. All of that for a group of people he'd only recently come to know. Are you really enjoying yourself with the party stuff? That sounds a lot more, now that I've said it, it sounded more like, are you having fun or are you just pretending to have fun? But I meant like legitimately, You like the party planning, don't you? I do know spoilers, by the way, for what happens in step 4. Baxter didn't meet your gaze, his eyes wandering around the room as he gently swirled the champagne in his glass. He took another slow sip before answering, intentionally dramatic.
My pleasure.
I'm having a good time, Kit. I'd hate for you to fret over something such as that. God damn it, I meant it legitimately, but I questioned whether or not it was fretting. I couldn't have devised a more pleasant way to spend my time here, even if I tried. And to be frank, I have tried. I didn't come to Sunset Bird totally devoid of any plans or ideas. You and your friends have invited me to participate in an event with great significance to you. It's a profound gesture to show that to a relative stranger. When it's over and I'm long gone from here, I hope you can all look back on this party for years to come, maybe for the rest of your lives, and treasure the memory. And if I am a part of that memory, then that is satisfaction enough. Though perhaps I'm in danger of giving my contribution too much credit. He was smiling, but it was a muted, distant thing, like a car headlamp seen a long way off, ready to turn a corner. It felt akin to a farewell, even though he wasn't leaving yet. The glimmer was gone as his eyes met yours over the rim of his champagne flute.
You know.
Besides, I'm on vacation. I have nothing but day after day of generous free time. It would be silly to begrudge it being used, especially as it's easier for me. This party is only a party from my perspective, which means I can put my head back and simply bask in the occasion with the highs and the lows. For you and your friends, this is important. It has weight. I have to say, I'm curious about the situation. You and Terry are both determined to make this a big event, but for all that, it seems a rather one-off affair. Not wishing to sound critical, but if you were in the regular habit of throwing each other parties, I would have expected better preparation for, well, the preparation.
To be honest.
Is there something about this specific birthday that warranted such a special affair? You found yourself taken aback by this. It wasn't like you hadn't thought about it either. You've been doing as much earlier tonight. But what with the rush to get all the ingredients and baking the cakes, you'd been distracted since then. All at once, the feelings you'd suppressed bubbled back up to the surface. Slowly, hesitantly, you began to talk. This might be the last birthday we get to celebrate together. I've known Cove basically my whole life, Terry and Randy not as long. Still, they're important to me. Soon we'll be grown up and we'll head off to different places in life. And I can't just sit around without making the most of what we have left. No way. That's why this party has to be amazing. At least, how I feel. As he listened to your explanation, Baxter regarded you with a solemn expression. There was a pinch in his forehead where his eyebrows had come together. He was all sympathy.
I'm sorry.
You're going through a difficult experience. I wish I knew how to alleviate matters. It's so uncertain. Sadly, there are few, if any, guarantees in the world. Or rather, such is the case for the vast majority of us. I can believe there are people who can remain close to each other in spite of distance and years between them. Those who will remain in your life, always. His countenance had softened, a faint hopefulness lighting his face as moonlight on water. He spoke with tenderness.
I believe you will find those kinds of people.
Go ahead. Continue. I really do. And while nobody can say for sure, I'd bet that you already have. I hope you can have someone like that as well. Damn, that's so mean. Okay. Chill. Thanks.
I'm here for you.
Thanks. I must sound quite the broken record by now, but you're very welcome. It's the least I could do for you. Maybe it was partly due to the lateness of the hour or the ordeal you were both wading through, but you were overcome with a strong surge of affection for Baxter, okay? He'd be the first to play it down, but you knew the memories of your time with him were going to be precious, indeed. Wow, I'm so grateful to meet you. There was a long pause. The only sound was the faint whisper of a car passing by, the gurgle of the fridge from the kitchen. Ah. The two of you jumped in surprise as Baxter's phone went off like a shot in the night. It was the alarm he'd set when you put the cakes in the freezer. He shakily turned it back off, getting up from his seat. A few seconds hesitation, and then... Well now, those cupcakes had better be ready for us. It had the vaguely dangerous quality of a threat, which is so absurd after the past few minutes that you couldn't help but giggle. I like by this point even your fumes were running on fumes. I kind of like a spring in your step. That sounds cute. But this was it, the final stretch before the finish line. You left the living room and returned to the kitchen, where Baxter popped open the freezer door. You retrieved the bowl of frosting in a plastic bag for piping, along with the tubes of glitter Terry had given you hours ago. We can each take half and do the frosting and dusting in one go, right? Wish me luck. Wish me too, the fuck? Gotcha. Good luck. You both set about this last task with a grim determination. You worked quickly, not sharing any conversation or otherwise distracting from the job at hand. You frosted and dusted, each of the 36 cupcakes being lined up along the counter as they were completed.
Oh.
You made it look bad? That's okay. Make that 35. The singleton Baxter dropped, splattered helpless on the kitchen floor. Oh, that sucks. There was a break in the frosting, a moment of respect for the cake now lost. Then you both shrugged. One extra cupcake wasn't about to make a world of difference, though Terry might have disagreed. What Terry didn't know wouldn't hurt her. 5-second rule? Split it in half? A treat. When the surviving cupcakes had been properly outfitted with sugar, more sugar on top of the existing sugar to be precise, you stepped back to admire your creation. It was obvious that neither of you had any special gift for the art of cake decoration. Yeah, but hey, they'd probably still taste good, and that was the important thing, right? You two fished out 4 airtight plastic containers from the lower drawer and stashed the cupcakes inside. Lids were closed, boxes were in the fridge, and finally, the door was shut. It was finished. You had survived. You checked the time. It was almost 2 in the morning. That's too much time. It does not take that long to bake and frost some cupcakes, but okay. You could have almost cried from joy. Baxter rubbed his tired eyes, then massaged his temples. I have a newfound respect for bakers everywhere. I shall look forward to having all my future life events professionally catered, even if it costs a fortune. He stared down at the miserable remains of the casualty cupcake on the tile. Is it still on the tile? You didn't pick it up?
Never.
Valid. You laughed, the sight too funny for you to keep a straight face. Ignore the mess, I can take care of it. I'll see you back to your house. I fear your parents might be worried that you've been out so late. You reassured him that it was fine. Your moms knew you were just across the street, and you'd say it might take a while. You weren't concerned. Baxter was relieved to hear it. The journey home was a blur. It's like 5 steps. A disconnected sequence of images. As promised, Baxter walked with you down the steps of his condo and across the road. You remember the stars twinkling overhead, the clap of your shoes on the asphalt as you skipped along. You ambled through your childhood home in the dark, by feel and instinct alone. You counted the stairs in silence, tiptoed into your room, approached the bed, and then you jerked awake with a start. There was a loud knocking coming from your bedroom door.
How are you?
Kiddo? Are you awake? You were in your bedroom. You were pretty sure about that anyway. 80% positive, at least. You were too drowsy to come up with any more creative place to be. But besides the basic and likely fact of existing in your bedroom, you found that you hadn't the faintest idea what was going on. There had been a voice, right? You remembered a voice. Terry phoned the house earlier, but you missed her. There it was again. Your mom's voice. As you slowly blinked awake, realization came to you in stages. You recall the events of yesterday. The live sensations swam in your memory, a frantic afternoon of planning, of shopping, and of sugar. At some point, you had ended up in your bed and asleep, but you didn't recall setting an alarm. Carrie had said she'd pick you up at 7 this morning, so she was your wake-up call of the day. You threw the covers off, getting out of bed as noisily as you could manage, okay? All right, I'm up. Standing in the middle of your room, your mind blinked. Then you scrunched up your face really tight. It allowed your brain to form a coherent thought. Miranda's birthday. It was Miranda's birthday. You hastily changed into a fresh set of clothes. I can't talk tonight, apparently. Tried to tame your bedhead as best you could, and then raced downstairs. You bade your moms a quick farewell.
Have fun.
And say happy birthday to Miranda from us, okay? You had barely enough time to yell a quick thank you over your shoulder before you were out the front door. When you stepped outside, Cove was there, waiting for you on the sidewalk. The number of times you left the house to find him there, it sometimes made you wonder if he lived on your sidewalk. He hadn't the faintest trace of sleepiness on him, but then Cove rarely did. He was a tiny sun at any time of the day, but mornings were when he shone the brightest. Can't relate. You exchanged your usual greetings, but rather than stop to chat, you kept on walking by. As you explained to him, the cakes were at Baxter's place, and you needed to go pick them up.
Oh.
Alright. Sound a little bit happier about that, okay? Cove didn't tag along, content to leave you to your own devices. That made sense. He wasn't yet at the point of seeking out Baxter's company willingly. Come on, man! And it wasn't likely to start right now. Can't believe the bestie doesn't want to go over to the boyfriend's house. When you knocked on Baxter's door, it popped right open like your meager taps had knocked it off of its hinges, okay? Hi, Baxter.
Nice to see you.
I am surprised. Honestly, I really thought that I would knock on the door and you would not answer. I'm proud. I've been expecting you. You'd gotten that impression. He moved aside in the hallway to let you pass. Did you... Okay. Before we continue, serious question, Baxter. Did you sleep? Because now that I'm thinking about it, like, you're so ready. Did you just stay up all night, like, in preparation, in order to not have to wake up early? He moved aside in the hallway to let you pass, and you strode briskly into the condo. He followed you into the kitchen, where you found the cakes in their containers, stacked on the countertop. The big day is finally here. Excuse me. His composure had been broken with an oh, that was a yawn there. The size you hadn't seen since the coffee shop. Hey, I'm just wondering, what time did you go to bed last night?
Honestly.
Fucking knew it, bitch. Literally, what did I just say? I knew he was gonna do that. Truthfully, I didn't make it to bed. You weren't surprised by now. Baxter was just like that. but you still felt a pang of guilt. You were putting him through the ringer with this party. It's not an issue. I felt rather rough after I finished cleaning yesterday and took the liberty of having a nice long shower. I also prefer to avoid going to bed with damp hair. But no sooner had I gotten dry than I realized that I wouldn't be able to get any substantial amount of sleep before I needed to be up again anyway. So I stayed awake instead. You could only shake your head at his recklessness.
Now.
Enough about me. Let's take these delicacies outside and wait for Terry. She texted me earlier to let me know she was on her way. I imagine you received a similar message. Terry had indeed sent you a message, although it was too early in the day to be hit with something with so many exclamation points. How much sleep had she gotten? He picked up 2 of the waiting boxes, leaving you to carry the remainder. You didn't linger, heading straight for the front entrance. Baxter came out behind you with a key. He had trouble with the logistics, eventually resorting to balancing the containers in one hand, like a serving tray, before closing and locking the door with the other. Back on the street, Cove was still loitering on the street down by the front gate, blissfully unaware of what the secret party planning committee had gone through for this. Man, you are so lucky. Baxter called over to him, full of characteristic good cheer. Good morning, neighbor. Hey. Coe's response was quiet, more distracted than aloof. He was peering with interest at the boxes you were carrying. He had hopes about their contents. The plastic was kind of foggy and translucent, so it wasn't quite possible to tell what was inside. But Cove intuited that, whatever it was edible. The boy was like a shark sometimes.
See?
My friend, you are looking at 35 of the finest freshly baked chocolate cupcakes with cream and cheese frosting. Cove's face visibly lit up at the word cake, as if he'd been offered one already. That's great. I believe Terry is also bringing a proper birthday cake from home as well. Cove's smile grew even wider. You hoped Baxter was taking notes. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach was a phrase you suspected had originally been written about Cove. The promise of treats was far and away the most exciting aspect of any party, at least to him. Your childhood companion was so silly, you thought. He provided you with most of a lifetime's worth of entertainment for free. In fact, someone had tried to pay you to have it. Those won't be the only sweets either. There's going to be a chocolate fountain, too. Cove's mouth formed a perfectly round O, and you thought you could see sparkles in his eyes. Or maybe they were sprinkles.
Yeah?
What are you guys bringing to dip in it? Strawberries? Marshmallows? Banana slices? Pretzels? While Cove was busy listing every single item he thought might reasonably taste good drenched in liquefied chocolate, it struck you that you didn't know the answer to this question. Was Terry handling that? Were you supposed to have thought of something? You exchanged a nervous glance with Baxter, who shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. Very not good. Baxter didn't have a clue either, which could only mean that you never even discussed the matter with Terry yesterday. It was the cupcake quantity quandary all over again. Your shoulders slumped. You had honestly never anticipated organizing a party would involve coordinating with so many different things. Your mind simply couldn't keep track of it all. Seeing your distress, Baxter slipped into his usual mode of cool cucumber-ness. We could dip cucumbers in the chocolate. I don't know that necessarily goes together, but... Let's think about this. Terry took the fountain home with her, so we can sensibly assume that she has taken charge of it, and by extension, the offerings to dip into the fountain. However, time isn't on our side, and luck has not been either. In order to be 100% absolutely crystal clear about the matter, we should text her and ask. Although if she's currently driving, and then she just pulls up. Get in, losers, it's party time. He trailed off, a hint of anxiety managing to mar even his carefully schooled demeanor. You all exchanged a new set of nervous glances, Cove joining in this time. This problem was one even he could worry about. We should grab stuff. Our houses are right here, and you know what Terry's like. If she knew what she was going to do, she would have said so already. Baxter inclined his head in agreement, bending down to place his boxes of cakes on the ground near the condo's front entrance. Then he straightened, pulling himself up to his full height.
Fine.
Okay. We are going to go to our homes to retrieve some suitable samplers. Harry will arrive and take us to the venue, and there will be no further problems. His voice resonated with a forceful air of finality. This was perhaps the closest you'd seen to Baxter losing his temper. Then he added, as an afterthought, unless of course we are hit by a car on the way there, but quite frankly I will be much too tired to care about dying by then. Let's settle this. He was right. It had to be done. You simply put down your box of cupcakes next to Baxter's. Then the three of you made a run for it, each going your separate ways. You dashed over the road and hopped inside of your house, heading directly for the kitchen. You opened cabinets at random, racking your brain for anything to bring. What would go in a chocolate fountain? You wish you'd paid more attention to what Cove had been saying earlier, though you did remember to swipe the bunch of ripe bananas off the counter. I'm taking all these, bye. Then you hit the jackpot on the highest shelf of your family's cupboard. I don't even get to know. Oh, it's just the jackpot. Back outside, the three of you examined the spoils of your impromptu raiding party. There were several types of assorted fruits, marshmallows, some cookies, pretzels, and a box, just a box of granola bars. Sure, I guess. This last item, one of Cove's, had Baxter chuckling under his breath.
Not bad.
I have to say, I've never heard of granola bars being dipped in a fountain before. Chocolate or otherwise.
Well,
it was either that or the protein bars. Neither, Cove. No, this is good. It will be a novel edition, not to mention easy for people to hold without a utensil. Besides, I hardly contributed at all. Chinese food boxes, anybody? He gestured a little timidly at the bag of salted pretzels, his sole addition to the haul. It was all he'd had to bring. You saved the day by finding your mom's and Liz's special treats. 3 types of cookies and big marshmallows. They'd have to sacrifice for this event as everyone else did. Right. I brought some bags along to put everything in. I can carry those while you two handle the cakes. You and Baxter both praised Cove's quick thinking and gratefully dumped everything into the bags he held out. Then you gathered up the boxes of cupcakes. You mingled about, making idle conversation about the upcoming party and trading some anecdotes with Cove about the baking process from the night before. We stayed up until 2 a.m. Started at 10, stayed up until 2, 4 hours in order to bake simultaneously 3 batches of cupcakes that would have probably taken 20 minutes normally. We made frosting during the baking time, so we can't even say that that was an added, time waste. Just, it took us 4 hours to do 20 minutes worth of work. Yeah, I don't know what we were doing either, bud. He was especially mournful to hear about the accident that had claimed the 36 cupcake. But soon there was a telltale sound of a vehicle approaching at speed. Neom. The Brooks van? Yippee! The Brooks van pulled up alongside you, and the horn honked loudly in greeting. Terry had arrived. You could see the enormous grin on her face through the front windshield. She enthusiastically stuck her arm out of the driver's window and waved. Cove beamed and waved back.
right.
I'll get the door. He pulled open the sliding side door, jumping inside and striking up a conversation with Terry immediately. You clambered in after him. The car was normally spacious, but since you'd filled it up with party equipment yesterday, it had gotten cramped. You made room for the additional food wherever you could.
Hey, buddies!
You ready to make like an RPG and party up? Terry. I'm so glad you're my friend. Not really. Cove, come on. Were you ready to have a chocolate fountain? What did you bring to dip in it? Being subjected to this accusation right out of the gate knocked Terry completely off her stride. Her expression was utterly baffled. Cove, how do you know about the chocolate fountain? I almost forgot we even had a chocolate fountain. Then Terry clapped her hand to her forehead, her eyes wide. Ah! Oh shoot! I forgot to bring stuff for the chocolate fountain! Terry started panicking, but Baxter promptly headed that off the pass with a casual rap of his knuckles against the external wall of the van. He leaned in through the side door, having stopped short of climbing inside after you and Cove. No need to worry about it, Terry. We thought that might have happened, so we took the liberty of bringing along some offerings of our own. You guys got the goods?
Of course.
Right here. Cove held up one of the bags of extra supplies he was still clutching, jiggling it enticingly. Terry placed a hand heavily to her heart. Crap, you are my saviors. But don't scare me like that. I thought this party was a bust. And you know how many times I've thought that in the past 12 hours? You're so lucky you're not doing this by yourself, Terry. Where would you be without us? Where would your fountain be without us? Oh yeah, you got that right. Remind me to treat you to something once this is all over. Deal.
What?
Hold on, you barely did anything yet, Cove.
So?
He's present now, and it was thanks to him that we realized what was amiss. Cove speaks for us all, I think. You have yourself a deal, Terry. Fine. Slowly but surely, you felt some of the stress from the last several hours fade away in the company of your friends. Maybe this whole thing would work out alright in the end. Baxter gently tapped the side of the vehicle again to grab everyone's attention.
Does that sound alright?
With that safely out of the way, I'll part with you three here. I'm going to drive along behind in my own car, if that's alright. Heck no, we're all gonna crowd into a van together with all these party supplies. And you're gonna suffer like the rest of us. Okay, sure. That's cool with me, man. Terry didn't really get what Baxter was doing, but she wasn't about to start raising objections. A brief glance at the two of you confirmed that neither you nor Cove had a clue between you either. Splendid. I'll see you very soon. You're getting something. You have plans. I just don't know what they are. He punctuated his farewell by shutting the van door, leaving you and Cove to buckle yourselves in. Terry watched in the rearview mirror as Baxter approached his vehicle and got inside. Once he'd fastened his seatbelt and flashed her a quick thumbs up, she put the van in drive and pulled out. Baxter followed suit, and the four of you were off. And I think that this is where we are going to end this episode for right now. I was not expecting this moment in particular to be 3 episodes long, but it is looking like we are going to require a 3rd episode for Miranda's birthday party. As of right now, to be honest, I kind of have mixed feelings about this game, this particular playthrough, because while it is our life and I am enjoying myself just like playing it and seeing, I don't know, the friendship and the hijinks that we get into and all of that, Baxter's route in particular, I just don't think that I'm really having fun with, or at the very least, I'm definitely not enjoying it as much as I do Cove's route. And so it's definitely a strange feeling of like, I kind of want this to be over, but also simultaneously, I want to see the ending through. You know, I still have hopes that I'm going to enjoy step 4 better than I have been enjoying step 3. I want to see that all happen. But I'm just not really enjoying step 3 very much. And I really thought that I was going to save my ideas of this playthrough until the end to give you a like definitive, I definitely liked Cove's story better than Baxter's story. But I think I'm just gonna say it right here. I enjoyed Cove's story better than Baxter's story. This is kind of to me. But I will continue on with the rest of the game. Of course, we have to play through until the end, see all the different moments. It's just not my favorite, and I thought that you should know that. But like I said, I am going to end this episode here. We're at an hour. We need to end it eventually. So thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you just can't wait to see that next episode, you want to see more of this game or any of the other games that I am currently playing on the channel, you can join the channel membership and see episodes ahead of public releases. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode for some more Our Life, Beginnings and Always, Baxter's Route.